little cool outside, some rain to deal with. Not quite patio season yet, but if you love beer, you will love our next segment. I want to introduce Ian McDonald of Old Tomorrow Beer. This is amazing. We're going to talk about beers and also the pairing, which is very important.
That's
which
right.
type of beer goes best with different types of food. First of all, I have to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Fresh off your win at the Ontario, what is it, the Ontario Brewing Awards?
The Ontario Brewing Awards. We were there last night celebrating, partying, and enjoying some great beer. And we placed third. We've got the bronze medal in the amber ale category. So very excited. We're only about 5 months old, but it's good to enjoy some early success.
Even more amazing. Only 5 months, you're already making a mark. Tell us about how you guys came to be, and given how competitive this marketplace is when it comes to beer, especially in this province, tell me what led to this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an idea in the family for about 10 years now. So we're a family business, and we've always been inspired by the greatness that Canada is and how it came to be. It was a long, odd nation in the start, and Sir John A. was one of the key people that helped bring the Canada together, and we wanted to celebrate his legacy. So the nickname Old Tomorrow is actually his nickname. And we want to do a beer in his honor and in the honor of Canada, the greatest country we feel in the world. And there's a lot of great American pale ales, India pale ales, British ales, but we don't have an ale we can call our own. Hence
I love it.
The CPA, or the Canadian Pale Ale.
I love the idea. All right, so let's get to some of the things. We brought a number of dishes here. Let's start with the Montreal smoked meat.
Okay.
This is a big tradition, of course. So, tell us about that and the kind of beer that you would go with it.
Absolutely. So we have here a selection of Canadian foods heading into spring, summer. And what we want to do is pair up the beer. There's a lot of different flavor notes in the beer. It's very balanced. We think a Canadian is feisty yet smooth. So it's got a lot of flavor to it, but it's got a silky smooth finish. And that pairs well with everything. But specifically with the Montreal smoked meat, you got the spiciness in the actual meat itself. And then the Canadian rye adds a little bit of zing. And the smooth notes in our beer help pull that out a little bit. And it also helps that there's a little bit of Canadian rye in our Canadian Pale Ale.
Oh, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
How long does it take to come up with this recipe, and how do you know that that is the one you want to go with? You've hit the mark.
Yeah, it takes a while. I don't think you're ever really finished. I think you're always kind of experimenting. But we tasted about 250 beers over several days, which was a lot of fun. And we were able to kind of pinpoint which kind of flavors. The R&D is always the best part. It's the upfront piece. But we were able to pinpoint different flavor notes across the whole world. And for us, Canada is really bringing the best of all the flavors from around the world, both the old world and the new world together. And so we tasted about 250 beers to kind of pinpoint the recipe that we wanted to create for this. And then we spent about 7 months brewing it, refining it, and kind of continuously improving the recipe until we got there.
Do you come up with new recipes, maybe just for a smaller batch? Maybe in the future, just a short-term sort of option?
Yeah. Absolutely. We're actually working on a couple new recipes right now for the fall, and also aging this right now in rye whiskey casks for the summer. So we're going to be doing a couple of one-off seasonal beers. We think rye is immensely Canadian, and there's rye in our beer. There's rye all over this table right now. So we want to do something that really helps celebrate some of Canada's greatest achievements beyond just bacon and maple syrup.
I love it. Okay, let's go to some of the other dishes. What do you got?
So we have barbecue here. We've got some chicken. We've got some ribs. Again, really spicy, smoky. There's a bit of a sweetness in this beer as well. So it's not overpoweringly bitter. It's very balanced, and that sweetness really helps to complement and cleanse the palate as well. And then over here we've got Nanaimo bars, one of my personal favorites. So dark chocolate and chocolate sweets are also great too.
Beer with dessert?
Beer with dessert, because the bitterness of the hops, even though there's not much in our beer, I mean there is some, but that helps really play off the bitterness of the chocolate and complement it, and the sweet, smooth finish sort of cleanse the palate. So you actually end up drinking and eating a little bit more than you probably should, but it's delicious nonetheless.
Very cool. And do you notice how the beer changes, and maybe even how the taste of it changes with certain types of beer?
Absolutely. Depending on the temperature of a beer, so the warmer it is, the more maltiness you can bring out of it. The cooler it is, the more crisp it'll taste. So that can definitely bring out different flavor notes in the beer, but also in the food as well.
How does it affect the flavor of the tortilla, for example?
So this is a savory dish. There's a lot of goodness in there, and what our beer will do on the end is it's got a crisp finish. So it's an ale, but it's very smooth and crisp at the end, so it's very refreshing. And what it can do is you'll enjoy the tortilla. It's very thick and savory, but at the end you kind of want to have a quick drink and kind of get on to the next bite, and so that'll help cleanse it right through.
And you mentioned the cheese.
The cheese, well, we've got some brie here, we've got some blue cheese, and we've got some Quebec Oka. So whether it's a creamier cheese that just needs a little bit more spiciness or flavor pop from our hops, that can help complement a blue cheese, or excuse me, a brie cheese. And if it's a blue cheese, it's very sharp, right? It's very pungent. So you want something on the back end that sweetens it out and kind of cleanses the palate. So I guess the moral of the story is it's got a little bit of the upfront feistiness, and it's got a little bit of the back end smoothness, like any Canadian. You know, we're not the biggest country in the world, so we're scrappy. We've got to be tough and resourceful, but at the same time, we're really approachable and easygoing, right? We kind of get along with everyone. So we wanted to build a beer that speaks to the Canadian spirit, but also pairs well with so many other great Canadian dishes.
How did you guys respond to the news that the talk of everything changing in terms of the rules, the accessibility for beers and other alcohol, for example? But it must really help the microbrewers in this province. At least the talk of it. It's still a long way to go before everyone has access to it. But talk about that for you, and then going back to how competitive it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for the best interest of the consumer at the end of the day, but also for great beer, is more access and more choice and more places. So anything that kind of gets more beer everywhere across the province and more kinds of beer, like in other districts and provinces and states, that's the best thing at the end of the day. I love beer, I love trying new beer, and I love to get all of it if I could. So we're really in favor of more access where we can. Right now we're at the LCBO, so we're at 150 LCBOs across Ontario, and they've been phenomenal partners, really supportive of the craft beer industry, and we've been privileged to work with them and are looking forward to continuing to build our beer business with them. And we're also in a number of bars and restaurants in Toronto, including Loose Moose, Pacific Junction, and more to come.
Great. Some great ideas as well. Ian McDonald from Old Tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anthony.